When I was little, I went to this museum where one of the exhibits was a hallway full of grass. It wasn't just any grass, it was lush, vibrant, and seemed to stretch endlessly, defying the confines of the museum walls. The air was filled with the sweet scent of dew, and as I stepped onto the soft blades, a peculiar feeling overtook me, like stepping into a dream. The curator, an old man with eyes that twinkled with stories untold, handed me a small iridescent key. "This," he whispered, "is for you to find your way back." I didn't understand then, but I pocketed it, feeling its cool metal against my fingers. As I walked further, the hallway morphed. The walls turned into a collage of photographs, each frame showing a scene from what could have been my own life, yet different. Familiar strangers, altered moments. The grass underfoot began to sway, and a gentle breeze carried whispers, melodies of forgotten lullabies, and laughter from children who were never there. Suddenly, the corridor opened into a vast field under a sky painted with impossible colors. There, creatures of soft light danced around me, their forms shifting from animals to abstract shapes. One, a rabbit with wings, approached, its eyes deep like galaxies. "What do you seek in dreams?" it asked, its voice echoing like it came from within my mind. "I don't know," I admitted, the weight of the key in my pocket suddenly significant. The rabbit nodded, as if understanding. "Then let us explore," it proposed, leading me further into the dreamscape. We traveled through forests where trees whispered secrets, over rivers that flowed in reverse, and into cities made of candy where time looped back on itself. Each place was more surreal than the last, but always, there was a sense of familiarity, like I had been there before, perhaps in a dream I couldn't remember. Days or moments later, I stood before a giant door, the frame made of intertwined branches, leaves shimmering. "To return," the rabbit said, "you must remember where you truly belong." It was then I realized the key from the curator was meant for this door. I inserted the key, and as I turned it, reality began to stitch itself back together again. The door opened not to the museum, but to my bedroom, where I woke up, the morning light filtering through my curtains. My hand clutched the key, now warm from the dream, real or not. Years later, I learned that the museum had closed down. The curator vanished like a character from his own stories. They say some exhibits had a way of blending reality with dreams, a phenomenon they called Dreamcore, but I knew better, for I had lived it, and the key, now resting on my shelf, was my proof that dreams could be just as real as the waking world. My elementary school had a computer lab, and as this was the 90s and home computers were relatively new things, I was enthralled by it. It was only 1 or 2 long tables with about 10 small Macs, but I remember it fondly. We would sit there, the hum of the machines a constant against the backdrop of our excited chatter. The screens glowed with a soft, inviting light, pulling us into a world that felt both familiar and infinitely mysterious. One day, while the rest of the class was outside for recess, I lingered in the lab. The sun cast long shadows through the window blinds, creating stripes across the old linoleum floor. I was supposed to be working on a simple typing program, but curiosity got the better of me. I found a hidden icon, tucked away behind the regular educational software. It was labeled simply Dreamscape. Intrigued, I clicked it. The screen flickered, and for a moment, I thought the computer might crash. But instead, it loaded into a program like nothing I'd seen before. The interface was surreal. It looked like a child's drawing mixed with the bizarre logic of dreams. There were buttons that looked like clouds, file folders shaped like crescent moons, and the background was a gradient of pastel colors that seemed to shift subtly as I watched. I clicked on what appeared to be a map, but instead of showing geographical locations, it displayed places like the Infinite Playground, Memory Meadow, and the Whispering Forest. Each place name was accompanied by an icon that didn't conform to any known shape, half organic, half geometric, all nonsensical. Choosing Memory Meadow, I was prompted to enter a memory. I typed in one of my earliest memories, of a birthday party in my backyard with a giant bouncy castle. The screen shimmered, and suddenly I felt a pull, not just visually, but almost physically, like I was being sucked through a tunnel of light and color. When I opened my eyes, I was standing in the middle of Memory Meadow, but it was unlike any place I'd ever seen. The grass was a vivid, almost neon green, and flowers bloomed in impossible colors, their petals shifting shapes. In the distance, I could see the bouncy castle from my memory, but it was larger, made of a translucent material that shimmered with every bounce. As I walked towards it, creatures that looked like they were pulled from children's books and fever dreams played around me. A dog with wings chased its tail in the air, while a cat with clockwork ears for fur purred beside an old oak tree. Time flowed differently here. A minute could feel like an hour, or an hour could pass in what seemed like seconds. I met other children, each from different eras, each telling tales of their own dreamscapes they'd enter through. It seemed like there were similar programs hidden in libraries, schools, or even old community centers. We played in the bouncy castle, our laughter echoing with a dreamlike quality. However, as fun as it was there was an underlying rule: you must not stay too long. I remembered this as a whisper in my mind, a safeguard from the program itself. When I decided to return, I found a glowing orb in the center of the meadow. Touching it, I was pulled back through the tunnel of light, back to the computer lab where the sun had barely moved across the sky. The screen returned to the typing program, and the dreamscape icon had vanished. No one believed my story when I told them, chalking it up to an overactive imagination. But every now and then, I'd wonder about those other children and the endless worlds within the dreamscape, a place where the boundaries of reality and imagination blurred into a canvas of endless possibilities. Back in our old house before we moved, there was a window in my parents' bedroom that faced east. For some reason, I loved watching it and the light that shone down onto a crescent shape on the floor. Sometimes I'd just sit on their bed when they weren't there, gazing at the bright spot on the carpet. It seemed like the light held stories within its glow, tales from worlds that existed just beyond the veil of our reality. One afternoon, as the golden hour painted the room in warm hues, I noticed something peculiar. The light wasn't just forming a crescent, it was morphing, bending, and within it, images began to flicker like old film reels. At first they were mere flashes, trees with impossible architecture, rivers flowing upwards, and creatures with faces that were never quite in focus. But then, they started to linger. I leaned closer, my curiosity piqued by a scene that materialized more vividly. A cityscape appeared, all pastel colors and soft geometry, where the buildings looked like they were drawn from a child's imagination. People moved through the city, but their movements were disjointed, like they were dancing to a melody only they could hear. Their faces were blurred, yet their eyes shone with recognition, as if they knew me, or perhaps knew that I was watching. Days turned into weeks, and each morning I returned to the window. The scenes grew more elaborate. Sometimes I saw landscapes where the sky was an ocean, and fish swam among the stars. Other times, I witnessed parades where the participants were a mix of creatures from myth and dream, all celebrating in silence. One day, curiosity got the better of me. I reached out towards the light, my fingers trembling with anticipation. To my astonishment, my hand passed through the light and into the scene, as if there was no window at all. The warmth of the light enveloped my hand, and I felt a gentle pull like an invitation. With a deep breath, I stepped forward, and the world shifted around me. I was no longer in my parents' room, but in a room of my own making. Or perhaps, unmaking. Everything was Dreamcore. The laws of physics were suggestions at best. I could jump off a building and land softly on clouds, or walk on water that turned into a path of stepping stones. In this dreamlike dimension, time was a concept I forgot to grasp. I met beings who spoke in riddles and rhymes, where every sentence was a puzzle. They told me tales of this place, the liminal city, where reality and imagination intertwined, where every corner turned into another possibility, another dream. Eventually I learned that this world was a collective dream space, where the subconscious thoughts and wishes of sleepers across the universe converged. Here, you could shape reality with your mind, but only if you understood the essence of dreams, their fleeting yet profound nature. After what felt like both moments and eternities, I decided to return, to tell my family about the incredible place I had visited. As I stepped back through the window, the light faded, and the room returned to normal. But something had changed. The window was no longer just glass, it was a portal, a memory of a place where the impossible thrived. And from that day on, every morning I watched the light, knowing that behind its glow lay other worlds waiting for someone to dream them into existence. My parents and I used to go to a church that was held in a middle school gym. Before and afterwards, I loved exploring the empty hallways, as it was pretty unique to see a building like this almost completely deserted. The silence was profound, broken only by the echo of my footsteps or the distant hum of the gym's heater. One Sunday after service, I wandered further than usual. The hallway seemed to stretch longer. The classroom doors, usually adorned with childish artwork, now bore abstract, surreal paintings that I couldn't quite understand. I know I should have turned back, but curiosity propelled me forward. I found myself before a door unlike any other, painted in swirling patterns of neon pink and electric blue, with a handle that shimmered like liquid mercury. Compelled by an inexplicable force, I turned the handle and stepped into what I can only describe as Dreamcore. The room was vast, far larger inside than the school structure could possibly contain. The walls were a collage of memories and dreams, some mine, some not. A sky of twilight purple hung above, dotted with stars that blinked in patterns, spelling out names and phrases in a language I felt I should know. The floor was soft, like walking on clouds, and every step sent up puffs of pastel mist. In this room, time felt like a suggestion rather than a rule. I met figures, some like distorted reflections of people I knew, others entirely fantastical beings with too many eyes, or limbs that twisted in ways bones shouldn't allow. They spoke in hushed tones about worlds beyond worlds, of places where dreams were reality and reality was just another dream. I encountered a girl who looked like she could be my age, or perhaps ageless, with eyes that shifted colors like a kaleidoscope. She told me this place was where lost dreams went, a repository for the forgotten or the too strange to remember. She guided me through landscapes within the room that changed as we walked. One moment we were in a field of glowing mushrooms, the next atop a mountain made of gears and clockwork. The longer I stayed, the more I felt myself blurring at the edges, my identity mingling with the dream essence around me. I saw my childhood dreams play out before me like movies on the walls, and nightmares I hadn't remembered since I was very young. But as all dreams must, this one too had to end. The girl with the kaleidoscope eyes whispered that I must return before the essence of this place became too much a part of me. She led me back to the door, which now looked like a portal of swirling galaxies. With a longing glance back, I stepped through, and was back in the mundane hallway of the school, the door now just an ordinary classroom entrance. The return to reality was jarring. The vibrant, surreal beauty of Dreamcore was replaced by the stark fluorescent lights and the smell of old linoleum. But I carried a piece of that world with me, a sense of wonder, and the knowledge that somewhere, beyond the edge of what we dare to believe, there are places where dreams hold court, and the absurd is commonplace. A long time ago, my parents and I took a trip. To where exactly, I don't remember. The journey itself was a blur of motion, colors, and sounds that seemed to blend into one another, like the strokes of a dream painter's brush. We weren't traveling by car, plane, or train. We seemed to glide through a landscape that defied the conventional. As we moved, the world around us morphed into a kaleidoscope of surreal images. Trees whispered secrets in languages long forgotten, and the sky swirled with hues of impossible blues and purples, dotted with stars that winked in patterns that told stories of ancient times. Our path, if you could call it that, was a ribbon of light that seemed to pull us forward into a realm where reality and dreams were not just intertwined, but indistinguishable. We came upon a village, or perhaps it was more of a gathering place, for dreamers. The houses were constructed from soft, cloud-like materials, shimmering in the light of an eternal sunset. The inhabitants, though humanoid in shape, had eyes like galaxies and smiles that seemed to stretch beyond their faces. They greeted us not with words, but with melodies that resonated with the very essence of our beings. One of the dreamers, a figure with hair that flowed like the night sky, approached us. "You are here," they said, though their mouth did not move, "to find what you seek within the folds of your own minds." "What are we seeking?" my mother asked, her voice echoing like a distant memory. "That," the dreamer replied, "is for each of you to discover." The days that followed, if you could call them days, were filled with adventures that words can hardly capture. We walked through forests where the trees were made of glass, reflecting myriad versions of ourselves. We sailed on a sea of whispers, where the water was ink and the waves spoke in riddles. We danced with the shadows that had their own life, moving to the rhythm of a silent music. One evening, or what felt like evening in this timeless place, we sat around a bonfire that burned with colors I had never seen, casting light that didn't just illuminate, but painted our thoughts into the air. "Why do we dream?" I asked the dreamer. To explore the infinite possibilities within, they answered, their voice a chorus of whispers, to find truths hidden in the layers of your mind. As our time in this dreamscape neared its end, my parents and I realized that the purpose of our journey was not to reach a destination, but to experience the journey itself. The Dreamcore, as we came to call it, was not just a place, but a state of being where every thought could manifest, where every fear could be faced, and every joy could be lived in its purest form. When we returned to our world, or perhaps when we woke up from our collective dream, the memory of that place lingered like a song you hear in sleep. It was beautiful, but just out of reach, and yet it changed us. The mundane now held a magic, the ordinary had depth, and the colors of our daily life were richer for having seen beyond them. And though I can never pinpoint where we went or how we traveled, the essence of that Dreamcore remains with me, a reminder that within us lies an infinite universe. It's only waiting for us to dream.